Welcome to another edition of Under the Bus, where three old guys who've been on a few buses in our day extol the virtues of sport, but also throw a lot of sports people under the bus. I'm Bob Stevens from ESPN SportsCenter's Golden Days, joined by Curry Kirkpatrick of Sports Illustrated's Golden Days, although they may have more Golden Days ahead. They just got sold this week to somebody who reportedly cares. And Hall of Fame coach Rich Basirico from basketball's Golden Days as well. It is you two guys' favorite week of the year. I mean, Christmas Day was Sunday night, the setting of the NCAA basketball brackets.
I didn't give any presents, though. You give me a present?
We got presents coming.
You got presents. Right. You got to fill out a bracket. Come on. That's we're going to get to those brackets in just a little bit. Three of the number one seeds, though, are coming in off a loss. Three Big East teams think they got snubbed. Seton Hall, Providence, and Rich and Curry's favorite team, Rick Pitino's St. John's Red Storm, Oklahoma, Indiana State, and Pitt also had arguments. Most of those teams have all turned down invitations from the NIT. The Big East only got 3 teams in. The old Pac-12 has 4. The mighty ACC only got 5. The Mountain West got 6 teams in. How about that? The
just
SEC
did the whole
and the
pocket.
Big 12 just got 8. No. I'm just setting the table. Throw somebody under the bus here. That's what I want you to do. I'm just setting it all up.
Well, the Big East only getting 3 teams, I think, is bad. I really do. And the Mountain West getting.
But you're a big East guy.
I know, but the analytics go by. Everybody goes by analytics. They're ranked second in the country in terms of league and strength of the league. Only getting 3. Come on now. The Mountain West getting 6. Then how come the committee, out of those 6 teams, the highest ranked in the seedings is San Diego State at 5.
Okay.
And then we got 1 at 8, 3 teams at 11. I'm sorry, a 10th seed.
Getting in the weeds, Rich.
And and New Mexico wins the tournament, and they're 11th seed.
Nobody cares about the Mountain West. So
but then why do they get 6 teams?
Exactly.
Why do they get 6 teams?
The state of South Carolina got as many teams in as the Big East. 3 teams, right?
I know. Clemson.
South Carolina, Clemson, and Charleston. Which is where we're coming from.
And our
so
problem,
I just want to mention.
And our problem with that is?
There was no problem. College Charleston won their tournament. They should be
the
in,
reason
obviously.
all those Big East teams didn't get in were all the upsets in the conference tournament.
Right.
NC State, Oregon, UAB, all these teams knocked out the Big East teams. But I thought the questions on the draw. You say. You have a problem with the seeds too, as well.
Well, I do, but I don't
ever get in that.
Okay, but the Big East should have more than 3 teams. I mean, what hurt them, and we talked about this before, was Georgetown having a down year and DePaul being awful, and that brought down the rest of the league.
It brings down the whole conference.
I know, but that's unfair. I mean, that's not their problem that those 2 teams stink.
Well, at least Indiana State didn't get in, so we don't have to hear about Larry Bird for the rest of the week. And he wouldn't do any interviews anyway. So
there you go.
You talk about the analytics and the snubs, and Kim English of Providence, who also probably should have got in, he went crazy. He said the analytics are bullshit. Can we say that? He said analytics. He came right out and said analytics are bullshit. He said we might as well beat people if we're going to run away. We should run it up, 40 and 50 points. And I never knew that, but that counts in the analytics. Yeah. If you beat a team by 50 instead of 20.
That's wrong. That's wrong because you don't want the coaches running up the score.
And the head of the committee changes each year. Maybe every 2 years. They got a guy this year, Dr. Charles McClellan, who's the commissioner of the SWAC, whatever that is. And of course, he came out and he was the face of the committee when he comes out and explains. And he actually said they were trying to explain why North Carolina was a 1 and Iowa State was a 2. That was a big controversy going in. Bill. Who's the former coach at Villanova?
Jay Wright.
Jay Wright, and the other guys said all week that Iowa State should have been a number 1, and North Carolina dropped to number 2. Well, they asked McClellan about this, and he babbled on. He said something about one of his line was, "Well, we put North Carolina number 1 on the 4 line." What he meant was they were the 4th number 1. See, but the guy can't. And then he said, and one of their principles, one of the committee's principles, is the first game of the season is as important as the last game of the season. That's patently ridiculous, don't you think?
Yes.
As a coach.
Yes.
I mean, your team changes from five days earlier, not 5 months.
That's right. Yeah.
So what are they talking about?
I think you should look at teams that are peaking at you're right. St. John's was peaking. They won their last 6 games until they lost to Connecticut. You got to be peaking and playing your best ball.
Well,
and some of these teams that got in,
And that
The
brings
right,
up
the
that-
right Patino is
that-
coaching
well, that-
in this tournament.
Oh, wow.
And that's
His
Rick's son,
yeah.
Richard, who got New Mexico in, won their tournament, did not play well going in, and yet won the tournament. And that's
But they're the lowest seed of all the 6 teams that made it from their
then
conference.
they probably deserve that.
Well, a lot of people are picking him to make
Win.
a couple
Right, yeah.
of rounds.
He's got some good players.
But I mean, while we're under the bus,
Yes.
we should look around and see again Ricky Pitino, because his reaction to not getting in was fabulous. I mean, he said this, the NET, whatever that is fraudulent. We shouldn't even speak of that number. He said it's fraudulent,
Oh, yeah.
and he said
Ranking
we'll
number,
never mention that word. We should never mention that word again. And then he said, we did everything right. We played a tough schedule. We won 6 at the end. We still didn't get in. And he's bitching and moaning as he always does. He said, but we're not going to gripe. We're not going to say we
We're
got
not gonna
screwed.
gripe.
He said, because bitterness, he said, that's bitterness I don't want to deal with. I've had enough bitterness to last my lifetime. Which is basically Ricky saying, get me to my psychiatrist. I mean, maybe the committee took Rick's own review of his own team.
Maybe.
Remember when he said we have no lateral quickness,
Right.
we can't move, we're not fast?
Could've-
Maybe the committee said,
Hey, if I'm on the committee, I'm writing that down.
You're taking those notes. But, they weren't even the last 4 in.
No.
So actually, people are saying they should have been in, but if the other 4 teams didn't win,
Right.
they might still have gotten in.
Right.
It's I don't know. It's not an easy job.
well, again, I have a problem with the committee because a lot of those people, there's a 12-person committee.
Right.
I'll bet half those people are not basketball.
They're
people.
not.
They're from conferences. They're from football conferences. I don't think they see a lot of games. So the eye test disappears. But the eye test is important. I mean,
Very
take
important.
the ACC for instance. At the end of the season, in the conference tournament, Pittsburgh was terrific. They had
Yeah.
a great finish season. They beat Duke at Duke. They almost beat North Carolina in the tournament.
Yeah.
They look so much better than Virginia.
Oh, Virginia should have gotten in.
Which got in and Pitt didn't, because Virginia's resume is so much better than Pittsburgh's. So there goes your eye
But
test.
the ACC, I mean, North Carolina obviously was the best team in the ACC. After North Carolina, Duke, okay, they're pretty good, but I mean, Virginia getting in, they can't score. I don't understand. Like looking at teams, it should be an eye test. I have a quick story. A good friend of mine was on the committee, Peter Roby. And I went to a game with him, and we saw John Feinstein, who knew Peter. And Peter introduces me to John. And
Feinstein
John
was a writer.
A writer, correct.
Washington Post.
And he's given Peter a hard time, saying, you're the only guy in the committee that has any basketball background. Peter was the head coach at Harvard at one time. And I started thinking about, what is he talking about? But he was right.
No, of course
all
he's
the
right.
committee members, no one had a basketball background but Peter at the
Well,
time.
some of the ADs are from basketball schools, like
Oh, from
UNC.
basketball schools.
Yeah,
What
but that's
does
only
that
one.
mean?
That's
Yeah.
only one of the committee. They get and the SWAC guy is now the head of the committee. So I don't get this, because, as I said, I think the eye test, they don't go by that at all.
Well, they should be, but they should.
Speaking of under the bus in Virginia and Tony Bennett,
Yeah.
how about the coaching move of the year with him in the ACC semifinals?
Okay.
I mean, Tony Bennett, was a crooner. The crooner,
Yeah.
I left my heart in San
Right.
Francisco. This Tony Bennett left his brain in Charlottesville. How about they're up 3 against NC State, 5 seconds.
And doesn't
Virginia
foul.
has their best free throw shooter on the line. So Bennett pulls his whole team back. He thinks he's going to make the one. He misses
Right.
the kid O'Connell from NC State, runs the ball down the court, and Rich, he had 3 fouls to give.
Right.
Just keep calling,
foul.
make him call
Correct.
timeout.
That's
Instead, he didn't get to the guy till he gets in front of the bench. The guy banks it in,
Right.
rolls around the rim in overtime, and NC State wins in overtime, where DC Burns, whatever the dancing fatty bear, he goes crazy. He destroys Virginia in the overtime. He destroys North Carolina in the final, and NC State gets in
Right.
because of the crooner can't put a guy on. I mean, come on.
They were up by 5 with 3 minutes to go, and had one of the best foul shooters shooting 2,
Yeah.
misses both,
Oh, they choked
and
their
you don't
fouls.
take people off the foul line. I'm totally against that. You put two people. I know you don't want to foul them. You tell you guys we're not going over the back. But what happens? The ball comes off the boards and it comes into your hands. You don't give your kids a chance to get an offensive rebound. You got to put at least two people on the lane when you're shooting foul shots, regardless of what the score, the time, and so forth. And when you have fouls to give, my goodness, you got to foul.
Well, I mean, he just gave the game away.
He did,
I mean,
and he's a great
said-
coach.
And he said afterwards, we didn't want to foul anybody in the act of shooting.
Oh, come on. You don't. When you dribble up the court,
it's
you
only
foul them.
Exactly. They had nobody anywhere near O'Connell. O'Connell's a former, by the way, Mineola, Long Island, by the way. You
Oh,
probably know that.
nice.
All-American in lacrosse in high school.
Wow.
He got a lacrosse scholarship to Maryland. Instead, he went basketball to Stanford. He went from Mineola
To Stanford.
What's the Catholic school? Chaminade.
Chaminade.
That's where he went.
Chaminade, yep.
He was a star there in lacrosse and basketball.
Wow.
Went to Stanford for 3 years, or maybe I think he graduated Stanford.
And then went to
And now
NC
because
State.
of this, he's back at NC State playing.
Good for him.
Yeah,
Good for him.
terrific kid, by the way.
You two guys ought to be on the committee.
Most
I
definitely.
mean, just although nobody from west of the Mississippi would ever make the tournament if you two were on the committee.
Wait a minute.
As it is, because that's going to be my rant. Is I think, and I have always thought this, that I would throw the committee under the bus for this. Pick your 68 teams. I don't care, but then the 16 furthest west, you go that way.
Well, they
the
used to
16
do that.
down in the south, you go that way. The 16 in the east, you go that way. The 16 in the Midwest, or who's left, that's
Bob,
because you can
Bob,
kind of
it used
move
to
the
be
lines.
that way.
And it should. It should be.
When they had 24, and even when they went to 32.
Well, they were
you
cheap back
stayed-
then.
You stayed, in your
home
region.
because they didn't want you having to
Of
travel.
course, in those days, a lot of people critical of UCLA's
Well, 'cause
8
they always-
and 10 years.
Right.
They played the regional in Pauley Pavilion in the home court all the time. So
I
that's where
understand. I understand that part. But instead, we got College of Charleston playing Alabama in Spokane.
Correct.
That's good. We got Auburn. We got Auburn and Alabama both going to Spokane, and we got Yale and Yale
They can
is
share
playing
the plane.
Auburn.
They can share the plane.
Yeah, I
over
got
now.
They could go together.
Well, you're getting
And-
into the
and yet-
brackets. We're gonna do
Yeah,
that
yeah,
right
we're
away.
gonna get to that. But
I just wanted to
I
bring-
just think you should be cognizant of where you're sending people, because all of this supposedly back in the day it was for the players and it was for the fans.
And just think of the money it costs these teams to go
And the money it
cross
costs
country
the fans.
back.
I mean,
Well,
who,
it's not for the fans.
who
How many
from
fans
Charleston
right,
is
is
going to
gonna-
go to Spokane?
My nephew
Okay, you got one. Good.
and his wife.
So there's two tickets on the Alaska Airlines flight to Seattle out of Charleston.
Well, speaking of the West, I'll bring up a West team. How about Dan Monson at Long Beach
I
State?
think that's one of
He
the
gets-
great
he
stories.
gets-
You guys have been talking about coaches. Guy gets
Dan
fired.
Monson gets fired on Monday,
Yeah.
and he wins the tournament on Friday. A lot of people forget he started the great tradition at Gonzaga.
Absolutely.
He got them to the Elite
Yes.
Eight, which made Gonzaga a household name. Now they're in March, they're a household name now. And he left after 2 years.
2 years,
Went to
went-
Minnesota, and that's how Mark Few got the job
Right.
as his assistant at Gonzaga. Then Monson he's been at Long Beach for 17 years.
I did not know that because I'd lost
Right,
track of him
right.
after
But
Minnesota.
he
yeah.
was so gracious. They
Yeah.
interviewed him after the game, and he talked about Jim Harbaugh's line about who's got it better than me. Nobody. He said, I've got it better than anybody. But, the guy that doesn't have it better than anybody is the Long Beach State athletic director. And I looked him up. His name is Bob. Seriously, I looked him up. He's a new guy. He just took over in August. His name is Bobby Smitheran. Smitheran. Well, if Long Beach wins the whole thing, Smitheran's job is going to go to in smithereens. I mean, how does this happen?
They should bring him back. They should
might
bring him back.
They might
I
swallow
would
their-
love to do that. Yeah, let him.
If he wins
for
a couple
sure.
games, they might
absolutely
have
bring
to.
him back.
Heck, if he wins a couple of games, he could get a better job. What are you talking about? He doesn't have to stay at Long
Right.
Beach.
When's the last time Long Beach State went to the tournament?
The Tarkanian days.
Back. That's a long time ago.
Way back.
He's had him in a couple times.
He
Yeah,
has.
yeah.
He's had
But
him
they have not been a
Right.
factor, and they certainly weren't this year. They lost their last five or something like that. going into
There's
the
a coach that got fired. How about a coach that retires? I mean, the guy Keith Dambrot gets Duquesne to
At
the
Duquesne,
tournament first
yeah.
time in 47
Yeah.
years. Duquesne, which was a name in my past when I was a kid.
Sure.
Watching Niagara University, I used to watch the great Duquesne teams played, and they were really good. Well, this guy Keith Dambrot, he coached LeBron James in high school.
Yeah.
Oh, he did?
And then,
He was his high school
Yeah, he was
coach?
coaching
He was
Akron.
LeBron's
And
high
he-
school
and
coach
he was
at
a
St.
big,
Vincent St. Mary's. Yeah.
And Damrot was a big Akron guy. He was in
Right.
Akron, and he only went back to Duquesne because his dad played there. His father was a really
Right,
great player
right.
at Duquesne. But the favorite part of my favorite story in the conference tournaments was in the A10. Is that where they played the A10 tournament, where Duquesne beat Virginia Commonwealth in the final?
BC, yeah.
18 minutes to go.
Yeah.
18 minutes to go. The confetti came down. All the confetti came down. Red, white, and blue confetti. And Kevin Harlan went crazy on the mic. He was saying, somebody hit the wrong button. I mean, the confetti came down with 18 minutes to go. You know, I called
start
it
the
a
celebration.
premature ejaculate confetti, is what it was.
On that note,
You better stop. You better stop.
On that note, we better take a quick break. We're going to give you the brackets when we come back. We're going to tell you who's going to win this whole thing. Stay with us. Well, we're going to throw other teams under the bus.
For sure.
We welcome you back to Under the Bus, along with Curry Kirkpatrick and Rich Basirico. I'm Bob Stevens. All right, let's kind of go through the brackets. We're not going to pick each game, but maybe
every game.
But maybe set up who you got snaking their way through. Let's start in the East. That's the upper left-hand corner of most everybody's printed out bracket.
Can I throw a couple of things out? Just little tidbits here.
Yeah.
Okay, top overall seed, number one seed, which is Connecticut,
Right.
has not won the tournament since 2013. The number one overall seed.
Number one. Okay.
Okay. 2, the repeat champion hasn't advanced to the Sweet 16 in the last 6 tournaments.
Wow.
So all these people are picking Connecticut. That was a little information to give you ahead of the game.
Well, are you guys picking Connecticut? Are
Yes.
you picking Connecticut?
I am too.
You're
I
both
am
picking
too.
Connecticut
Well,
at the end. Okay, well, let's figure out how we get there.
Well, Connecticut kind of has a complaint because they're the number one seed, and yet they probably got the toughest draw, I think. I mean,
Probably
they've
so.
got some really, they got 3 of the top tournament champions in their draw.
Right.
They've got 2 other teams that made the Final Four last year, Florida Atlantic and who's the other one? San Diego State.
That's right.
They might have to play Florida Atlantic in the second round, to play Auburn, to play Iowa State. I mean, they're all tough defensive teams, all those teams. I mean, they're playing Florida. They're probably going to play Florida Atlantic in the second round. And this is basically the same team that made the Final Four last year. Of course, Dusty May, their coach, is apparently looking around at all the other jobs that are going to be open. Louisville, Michigan, he's the target. But who knows? I think Connecticut got the toughest draw.
Well, there's 11 tournament champions in the East playing in the East brackets. That's a lot. It's and there was 21 teams
Rich.
that were seeded number 1 going into the tournament that lost. So that's why it's so wide open.
Right. I got Auburn beating Connecticut.
I got Auburn playing Connecticut.
I got them playing, and I got
they're gonna
Auburn
be
winning the
tough.
game.
Yeah, well, good
In fact,
for you.
I got Auburn winning the whole thing. I've been bagging on the top teams all year. I've been asking you guys every week on this thing. Is anybody any good? Are these any really good teams? So I had to pick. I couldn't pick any ones. I picked a 2. I got 1 2 seed getting to the Final Four. Getting to the 8. And 1 getting to the Final Four. So that's all I got. So I got Auburn coming out of the East.
The Auburn-Connecticut game would be in the 16s.
Yeah.
And this game, I saw these 2 teams play 3 years ago in the Bahamas tournament. It went to double. It was a first-round game. It was one of the great games I've seen in the last 5 years. It went to double overtime, and it was a rock fight. And that's what it's going to be this time as well. Can you pronounce Auburn's star player? Can you name any Auburn players?
No.
That's what I thought.
Bruce Pearl.
But they have a great center named Janai Broom.
Yes.
Who's under the radar, but he's going to be a lot of third-team All-American teams. He got famous this year for slapping the hand away of a spectator at Mississippi. And he looked around, and the spectator was Morgan Freeman. Remember this?
Yeah.
He had to go over and apologize to Morgan Freeman. That's Chennai Broom. But that's what made him famous. But they're really good. They've got tremendous guards, terrific defense. They're almost a mirror of Iowa State, which the winner of Auburn, Connecticut, would get in the 8.
Yeah, that's who I got them.
And
I got
Iowa
them playing in the
State,
8.
you got to be impressed with Iowa State. Boat raced Houston. in the championship.
That was very impressive. What they did
both
against
Auburn
Houston.
and Iowa State coming out of their tournaments were really impressive.
All right.
So,
down in the West.
well, are we going to West
Yeah, we'll go to the
first?
West next.
Next? Can I say something about the East still?
Sure.
I want to say one thing
Go
about
ahead.
Illinois.
Yeah.
Illinois is probably going to play Iowa State in eights. Illinois' star player is a kid named Terrence Shannon Jr. He's got the Jerry curls. He's got a great smile. He was arrested early in the season, which nobody talks about. He was arrested for rape at a football game in Kansas. The university suspended him for 8 or 10 games. Then he sued the university to get a hearing, to wait for his hearing. The judge folded, and he let him play. Illinois had to let him play, and they suspended his hearing until May. So he's like Trump. They've moved the bat back. But, I think we should keep this in mind.
Yep.
On the other hand,
Yes.
he's one of the great players in America. And his running mate, he has a kid named Marcus Damask, who played 4 years at Southern Illinois with a 3.99 grade average.
Wow.
He's made all the All-American academic teams. I don't know if you saw Illinois in the late stages of the season, but Damask and Shannon they're the best twosome in the country, I think. So, Connecticut may be in danger there too.
All right.
Every team's in danger, honestly.
I think
Really.
so, yeah. Out West.
You can go west.
Out West, who do you like?
Well,
Go ahead.
Somebody likes North Carolina, so we can
I'm
go
not taking
away
any,
from
I'm
him
taking
already.
I'm not taking any number 2 seeds because there's only a 2 seed
go
that's
with
made
you.
it. You got to go by these
Historical.
stats. The number 2 seed has only made a championship
the
game
analytics
one
are
time.
Give me teams, not weeds. Give me teams. Give me players.
Well, I'm going to give you coaches.
Okay.
I think
All right.
when it comes down to it, when you look at Iowa State and Auburn, I picked Iowa State because I think they have a better coach.
Okay.
North Carolina.
Who's the coach at Iowa State?
I don't know his name. I just
Well,
know,
how can
I
you call him
just-
better coach? You got to know his name.
Because I've
his
watched
name is
him.
T.J. Altzenberger.
But he's terrific.
And he shows up in
He's
golf shirts.
outstanding.
He
He's
shows up in
outstanding.
golf shirts.
Because he shows his
Rack and-
muscles.
rack-
He's got,
yeah.
he got
Yeah,
big,
he's pumping
strong.
iron
Yeah,
all the time.
absolutely.
All the time.
I love him about that.
Yeah.
He's conditioned.
Yeah, he
some
is
of these
terrific,
guys
yeah.
on the sidelines, they are so out of shape. It's awful looking. But you got to look at. I think you have to look at coaches. Michigan State in the first round. I take Izzo.
I'll take Mississippi State.
Okay.
And I'm a North Carolina guy, and I am terrified of playing Mississippi State in the second round.
How about
in the
Michigan
second
State?
round.
You terrified of that?
Well, not so much.
Okay.
But,
That's fair.
because we beat
That's
Izzo
fair.
all the time. He's a terrific coach, but we beat him all the time.
All right.
Mississippi State, we don't even know who they are, and they're really good.
They're good.
Didn't they beat Auburn in the Raiders season? I think I saw
They
that
might have.
rock fight. All these SEC teams are all of a sudden, they're big and physical and tough and
Well, see, like Bruce Pearl, and
That's why I've got Alabama beating it North Carolina in the
Yikes.
16 to get to the 8.
well, the only thing
I think
that-
Alabama's good.
Alabama has this second-rated offense, but Bob, their defense is not even the top 110. That's the scary part. That's
he's
the
been
scary
studying
part.
numbers, Rich. He's been up
Absolutely.
all night long doing
College
numbers.
of Charleston could beat Alabama. They could.
Because they run and shoot.
And they defend.
Yeah.
It'll be St. Mary's that'll probably play Alabama in the second game.
I have St. Mary's losing.
Yeah. But that's another team that can play defense.
I've
But
got
anyway.
chalk in the West.
Okay.
North Carolina playing
Carolina,
Arizona in
right.
Elite Eight, which the committee's been looking at that game all year.
Yeah.
Because that's the Caleb Love
Right.
Invitational. We play against his old team. But as you say, everybody's in danger. Can I bring up, because I've been waiting all year to bring up my
Yes.
team from the West,
Yes.
Grand Canyon.
Okay.
Grand Canyon has a really tough. They'd play Carolina in the eighth or something, but their first round against St. Mary's, they're being underdog. If they beat St. Mary's, they'd have to play Alabama. But Grand Canyon is nobody even knows where they are. They're in the heart of Phoenix, Arizona, right near where they're going to play the finals.
Yeah.
They're the largest Christian school in America. 100,000 enrollment at Grand Canyon. Did anybody know that?
And they only need 12 players.
Dan
out of that
Marley,
effect.
remember the great son? Dan
absolutely.
Marley
Dan
started
Marley,
the
yeah.
program at Grand Canyon. They're now coached by Bryce Drew, who is
Great coach.
famous for one of the great shots in tournament history for Valparaiso.
Right.
His brother is Scott Drew, who coaches Baylor. Grand Canyon star is a wing player named Tyan Grant Foster. and they say he's going to be a lottery pick. Grant Foster is no relation to Foster Grant, who I believe invented the sunglasses.
Yes.
And this just gets me. Do you remember the spokesperson for Foster Grant sunglasses? It was none other than Raquel Welch.
Okay.
The late and great Raquel Welch.
All right.
And what does Raquel Welch have to do with sports? Well, she posterized America when we were young men.
Yes.
You know,
You
our
had
posters
you had
on-
our poster in your back.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
absolutely.
But
Right.
what does Raquel Welch have to do with sports? I'll tell you what.
What?
She was in the first interracial love scene in American movie history. It was in a movie called 100 Rifles, a Western, where she left Burt Reynolds for the great Jimmy Brown, the Hall of Fame running back.
Yeah.
And she and Jimmy Brown made out, first interracial, look it up.
Okay.
But Grand Canyon, to make the game against us, I think they'd need Jimmy Brown, Burt Reynolds, and Raquel Welch to play. So
All right.
I don't think it's
That's why you like Grand
Yeah,
Canyon
well, that's why
because
you
of
like all
Raquel
these
Welch.
numbers. I wanted to get you away from the numbers and get you to Raquel Welch, which is more important.
Actually, I like her better than the numbers.
I got Alabama
All right,
and
then finally.
and Baylor in the 8 with Baylor coming out. I think Baylor's
Baylor's very good, but you're
Baylor's pretty
talking
good.
about teams playing well down the stretch. They're 6-5 in their last 11 games.
There you go. Rich has got every
He's-
number
he's
available to mankind.
he's coming at it. All right, South region.
Oh, going south.
Let's go south. This is where I've got chalk, actually. I got Houston and Marquette at the end, and I've got Marquette upsetting Houston
I like
in
it.
Dallas. Ooh, that's going to be tough.
I
How about
like
starting
that.
early in the draw? I got James Madison
I do
upsetting
too.
Wisconsin and upsetting your Dukies.
Yep.
I have the same.
Same
Yeah,
thing.
so do
I
I.
have the same. I love it.
Brilliant
do I.
minds.
Yeah.
Brilliant minds.
That's great.
But that's about the only place I get I get squirrely with it.
I think health is a big factor in this region.
course.
Tyler Kolek, who's one of the great guards of Marquette, hasn't played for a couple
Right.
of weeks. If he doesn't play, they're in big
Then
trouble.
Marquette's
they can't
If
win.
he plays, they're probably going to play against Kentucky, and that's going to be coach
Great
against
game.
coach. You're going to you're not going to pick Kentucky to go anywhere, I'm sure.
Well, I have them going to the Sweet 16
You do. Well, that's for you. I
because
think
of their talent.
I think Kentucky's going to get to Houston, and that would be offense against defense.
Kentucky
go to the
and
Final
Houston,
Four.
that'd be a good one.
Yeah,
For a trip
well,
to the 4.
I would pick Houston because of their
I would
defense.
too.
I pick defense over offense.
And
but
because of
Kentucky
their
could
coach.
get bounced out early too,
They
though,
could.
right?
It happens to them a lot.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go to the Midwest then.
Wow. Not giving much.
Well,
Not giving much.
we're going to have more next week.
Richie
If
Pitino-
we've all
Ri-
got
you
chalk
didn't-
going,
Richie
we'll
Pitino
talk
Jr.
about the chalk next week when it makes it there.
Ricky Pitino Jr.'s in the West, right?
Ricky
New
Pitino
Mexico.
Jr. is he
Playing
was
Clemson.
out in the West. Yeah,
They're
he's
playing Clemson.
Clemson and then Baylor, and Baylor will take them out. So
Well, you've got chalk in the Midwest, so you've got Purdue going.
no, I
Finally
do
got-
not have
oh, you
chalk
got-
in the Midwest.
okay.
No. I had chalk in the South, but in the Midwest, I got Purdue. You know, I think the game I hinge the whole brackets on is the Kansas Gonzaga game. Who shows up healthy in the second round? If Kansas is healthy, Kansas is dangerous.
Right.
If Gonzaga's guard is healthy, then I got Gonzaga going to the Final Four.
Wow.
If
Wow.
he could do that, they're hot. Few is a fabulous coach,
He is.
and they're used to going to the Final Four.
Right.
They could do that.
I
if
have
he's
both
healthy.
those teams losing
Rich-
early.
Rich has some numbers.
I do.
Well, you have some numbers about Gonzaga ending the season, probably, right? You had
No,
some
I do
numbers?
not have
Okay.
numbers.
They were good
I got-
down the stretch.
Is Gonzaga, what seed are they?
Gonzaga's the 5, and Kansas
Okay.
is the 4.
All right, here's my
You're
last
5-12.
stat. Here's my
Yeah,
last
yeah.
stat. A number 5 seed has never won a national championship.
He's not going to this year either, but they're going to make it to the Final Four.
Can I bring up,
Yes,
you
bring up.
mentioned injuries. I think Kansas, their top 2 players have been out for a couple weeks. I don't know how they're going to be that well getting back. So I'm picking Samford to upset Kansas in the first round and to upset Gonzaga in the second round.
I have that too.
You guys like Samford at the Sweet 16?
Where is
I like it.
Samford?
Alabama.
It's a suburb
Southern
of,
Conference. Southern Conference.
suburb of Birmingham,
Yeah.
and they play buckyball.
Right.
Because they're coached by Bucky McMillan, and all they do is run and shoot and press. I mean, the threes are going. They average 28 threes a game. It's called buckyball, and they're going to play at altitude in Salt Lake. There, I did get a region there.
There you go.
And they're going to play Kansas, which is weak anyway. It's not deep. It's not deep team, and with their 2 guys hurt. I think Buckyball is going to run Bill Self out of this place. I seriously think
I've
so.
told you in the beginning I didn't think Kansas was overrated.
No,
You gave me a hard time about that.
Well,
now, I know they have injuries now. I get it. Even before
but
the
they're
injuries.
really weakened now. They're really weakened.
Well, their depth
and
is
the thing. I have no depth. Yeah. No, that I'll go with. But I'm all right. So who you got coming out? Who you got coming out of the Midwest?
I've also got another upset in the Midwest, and that's the Creighton Blue Jays.
Okay.
I've got them beating Purdue. As a matter of fact, I got them beating Purdue and going to the Final Four. I have Creighton go to the Final Four.
I have Creighton go to the Final Four
because
also.
their center, their center Kalkbrenner
can match up.
Terrific guy. He can match up with Zach Edey. Yeah. So I got Creighton going there.
I got Creighton going down in the second round to South Carolina. I got South Carolina making it to Tennessee, but then I got Tennessee coming through. Tennessee Gonzaga in the Elite Eight.
South Carolina's beat Tennessee this year.
Yeah.
Gamecocks are going to have to play Oregon in the first round. Dana Altman of Oregon has never lost in the first round. I got Oregon.
Good stuff.
Yeah. I have Oregon too. Did you copy?
I think, no,
okay,
I
so
copy me.
All right.
I think
so
he copied mine.
Final Fours. What do you got?
I have.
We don't have to know who wins yet, but
Okay,
Final Four.
I have my Final Four is UConn, Arizona, Houston, and Creighton.
1, 2, 1, and then a 3. Okay, great. All right. What do you got?
Okay, well, I'm almost exactly what Rich is, although I'm a homeboy, so I got to go with the Tar Heels.
Yeah.
Connecticut, Tar Heels, Houston, Creighton.
1, 1, 1, 3. Yeah, chalk.
Come on.
Now tell us what you have.
Oh, okay, I've got Auburn, Baylor, Marquette, and Gonzaga. I couldn't pick a number one. I couldn't pick a number 2. Do I even have a? Yeah, I got 2. Marquette's a 2.
Well, why can't you pick
Well,
a number
because
1?
I've been ragging on you guys about there's no great team this year.
Okay, who wins?
And I just think this
You have
is
Gonzaga in the Final Four?
This is going to be the chaos tournament of all time.
You might be right.
And
what's your final?
It's been a chaos season.
What's your finals?
My final game is Auburn Marquette. I got Auburn winning it.
Wow.
Marquette's guard got to be healthy, or all this blows up.
That's true.
And you've got
UConn winning.
Your finals.
I
UConn
have
against Houston.
I have UConn against. Oh, I don't think I filled that out.
Houston, Creighton. See, that's why I didn't count.
Oh yeah, I have Creighton beating Houston. I have Creighton beating Houston.
So you got Creighton and Connecticut.
And then I have
We play
UConn
the
beating
Big
Creighton.
East. It's a Big East. You're such a Big East guy.
That's what we want to prove to the world. We should have more than 3 teams in the tournament. That's what we want to prove.
What's Creighton doing in the Big East anyway? Good
That's
grief. All right. Hey, we're going to be back to wrap things up. We might even throw a quick football note in, but maybe not. We'll be back in just a moment. Under the Bus. Welcome back to Under the Bus. Curry Kirkpatrick, Rich Basirico, along with me, Bob Stevens. We were going to talk a little NFL and a little golf maybe, but you know what?
We're
This
into
next week for that.
basketball,
Yeah,
for
this
sure.
we'll have, what, 48 of the teams gone after this weekend. So when we come back, we'll only have 16 to talk about, and that'll take a little less time. And we'll have time for football, golf, and that kind of stuff. All right. Clean the notebooks out. Who else you throwing under the bus? What else you want to talk about?
Rich, go.
Rich.
First of all, the transfer portal.
Yeah.
It started yesterday. The NCAA playoffs is beginning, and now kids are wanting to leave their teams. This should be done after the tournament's over.
Didn't you tell me an NC State kid is
An
already
NC State kid now
who's in the tournament?
Well, yeah, he's a sub, and he didn't play in the tournament because he was hurt. But he's already put his name in the portal.
But a lot of these guys are subs, Rich.
I know, but it's
They're going
sad
to the
that
portal.
you got kids who are
I
playing
know.
on these teams, and there's over 100 kids in the portal already on day one.
Was
Day
this,
one.
Was this true last year? Did the portal open
I
right
don't
after the season
remember
closed?
it
I don't
being this
remember
early
either.
last year.
I
I
don't
think
think
it's
so.
the
I think
NCAA
it's
made a
stupid
huge.
rule. It's awful.
Wait for the tournament to be over in April.
You know what's going to
Plenty
happen
of
next?
time.
You know what they're going to do? They're going to go the other way. They're going to say, if you can go into the portal and you can play next week.
Yeah, I don't doubt that,
And
Bob.
then
I don't doubt that.
then we've got a real
that's
disaster.
awful.
All right.
It's awful.
You had
Let
another
me-
point you wanted to make.
Well, it's a bigger point. Let me just point
Go
out
ahead.
a
Go
team,
ahead. Please
a team and
do.
a player. I just want to
Yeah.
bring up the Patino family again. Richie Patino Jr. I don't know if he's a junior. They call him Richard. He's going by Richard.
Yeah,
What
he
is
goes
that
by
all about?
Richard.
And Rick goes by Ricky. Or maybe
or
not.
Rick.
I don't
Rick
know.
goes by
Anyway, he
Rick.
coaches New Mexico, which has a lot of NBA DNA. They have
Mashburn.
Jamal Mashburn Jr., who of course is the son of Jamal Mashburn
Does
Sr.
that make you feel old?
Their star is Eddie House, who's the son of Jalen House, the son of Eddie House,
Yeah.
the grandson of Henry Bibby, by the way.
Wow.
And
learned that
but
Henry
Jalen,
Bibby's grandson?
Yeah, exactly.
So he's giving me a hard time about giving stats out. Look what he's giving
well,
out.
his names. I mean,
Yeah, those are great
Jalen House has become a serious villain in his conference. He taunts players, he taunts fans, and they asked Patino Jr., the coach, about him, and he said he had a great line. He says, "Well, you have to get over yourself when you coach this guy." Well, I wonder if his father had ever taken that advice. Get over yourself. That'd be a great Patino plaque, in the house.
Get over yourself. That's good stuff.
Go ahead, Rich. NIT.
Well, here's under
Yeah.
the bus. I mean, these teams, St. John's being one, not going to the NIT and throwing the NIT.
Pittsburgh.
Providence.
Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Right.
Providence, not going to the NIT.
Awful.
Above it.
Awful.
They're above the NIT.
Well, the NIT it's not as big as it used to be, but it's still a big tournament. Now, it's not being played at the Garden this year. But these kids want to play.
There's an under the bus move.
But what these players want to play
coaches
for the
wanna
coach.
coach.
Of course they do. And but because of the transfer portal, they want to start working on that. Let your kids play. This is a fun tournament. Sure, it's not the NCAA, but it's still a fun tournament. For St. John's not going there and telling the committee we don't want to even be considered is wrong. Absolutely wrong.
Yeah, they're the host school. I mean, back in the day,
Right,
anyway.
right.
Although they moved to the
I
way
think-
And he knows the history about the NIT
Yeah.
Patino,
Well-
so he should,
Well,
they should
I'm
be the
old
first
enough
team
or
in.
young enough to remember the NIT was as big as
Yes.
the NCAA back in the day, and it was a great tribute to go to the NIT. I think if you get to New York, and it used to be, they play on. Well, they still play. The NITs played on campuses,
Right.
and then the Final Four get to go to New York.
Right.
I think the NIT has been diminished when they moved the Final Four out of the Garden to Indianapolis.
Absolutely.
Because if you're a kid playing at Oklahoma, you can tell your grandchildren, I played in the Garden.
Yeah,
Now it's in Indianapolis. I think it's really hurt the NIT.
absolutely.
But I still think it's wrong when these coaches say we're not playing in it. It's just
if they played at Hinkle in Indianapolis, that'd be okay.
They are playing there.
nobody
they-
knows.
no, they're not playing at Hinkle,
Nobody
are they?
knows who Hinkle. No, but nobody knows
The
who Hinkle
field
is.
house where they did
They
play.
are.
It's
Well,
Butler's home.
Butler.
Yeah, but it's
Nobody knows Hinkle.
But it's
though, like
Hoosiers.
the Madison Square Garden.
But it's Hoosiers.
It should stay in New York.
Even
You know,
stay in New York.
my
Absolutely
school
stay in
last year, my school, North Carolina, didn't go to the NIT. They said we're above it. It's not right.
No, it's not.
Well, but they're using it as an excuse as a transfer portal now. We need to start working for next
work on
year.
that.
They
Well,
can-
it's not
they've got-
next year. It's
these
this
teams-
year.
That's
Play.
right. These teams have 17 assistants now. They can put the assistants on the portal. Go
absolutely.
check it out.
Yeah.
Check the numbers out.
I agree. For sure.
all right.
Without a doubt.
All right. You got anybody else you throwing under the bus for basketball
Next week.
next week?
I have the announcer from Fox. The announcer from Fox.
Yes, this is the best last
when
word.
St.
Yeah.
John's was playing Connecticut, and
Yeah.
they were talking about Patino and the Hurleys and how there's a connection there and so forth. And the announcer says, and Rick knew Danny before he was born. How's that possible? How'd you know him before he was born?
In the womb.
I guess
You
so.
knew him in the womb.
That's a classic.
I think that opens up
That's a
more
classic.
cans of worms than we want to get into. All right, we want to thank Trey and Mahogany and the crew at USC Buford and our producer Justin Jarrett. For Rich Basirico and Curry Kirkpatrick, thanks for joining us. Under the Bus.
Under the bus.
Thank you.